After I dropped my son Connor at the airport that Tuesday morning, I thought I was just being a helpful father. He'd asked me to drive him instead of taking an Uber. Said he wanted to spend time with me before his business trip to Seattle. I should have known something was wrong when he insisted I not walk him inside the terminal. "Just drop me at departures, Dad," he'd said, already opening the door before I'd even pulled to a complete stop. I watched him disappear into the crowd, his navy blue carry-on wheeling behind him. My phone rang before I'd even merged back onto the highway. Robert Chen. I'd known Robert for 12 years. He'd handled our family's insurance since I'd started my construction business, had helped me through the paperwork when my wife Ellen died 2 years ago. Robert didn't call, unless it was important. "David," his voice was tight, controlled in a way that made my stomach drop. "I need you to come to my office. Right now. Don't go home first." "What's going on? Is there a problem with my policy? Please. Just come now. And David, don't mention this to Connor." The drive to Robert's office took 20 minutes. 20 minutes of my mind racing through possibilities, none of them making sense. I'd paid all my premiums. My coverage was up to date. What could possibly require such urgency that I couldn't even go home first? Robert was waiting for me in the lobby, which was unusual. He always met clients in his office, kept everything professional and private. He led me past the receptionist without a word, closed his office door, and pulled the blinds. "I need to show you something," he said, opening a file on his desk. "But first, I need you to stay calm. Can you do that for me?" I nodded, though my hands were already gripping the armrests of the chair. He turned his computer screen toward me. 3 weeks ago, someone submitted an application for a new life insurance policy. $500,000. The insured party is you. I stared at the screen. My name, my social security number, my medical history, everything correct. Except one thing. I didn't apply for this. I know. The signature's forged. I've seen your signature enough times to recognize it. Robert clicked to another screen. The beneficiary is listed as Connor David Hayes, your son. My throat went dry. There has to be a mistake. That's what I thought. Robert's jaw tightened. So I started digging. "David, this isn't the first policy someone's tried to take out on you. 4 months ago, there was another application. Same amount. I rejected it because the medical exam showed some discrepancies. I thought it was just an error in the system. Asked for you to come in for a new exam. Do you remember getting that call?" I did remember. I'd mentioned it to Connor over dinner and said it was strange because I'd just had a physical and everything was fine. Connor had laughed it off, said insurance companies were always trying to upsell policies, told me not to worry about it. Then I started looking at other policies in our system. Robert pulled out 2 more files. Physical files, the old kind, marked with dates from years ago. Your wife, Ellen. Her policy was increased to $300,000 6 months before she died. Do you remember requesting that increase? The room felt smaller. No. Ellen handled most of that stuff. She said she'd updated our coverage after my brother died. Wanted to make sure we were protected. Your brother, Thomas. Robert opened the second file. His policy was increased to $250,000 just 4 months before his car accident. The beneficiary was Ellen. I couldn't speak, couldn't process what he was suggesting. "David, I need to ask you something, and I need you to really think about your answer. Ellen's death. The doctors said it was an accidental overdose of her pain medication. But were there any inconsistencies? Anything that didn't feel right?" I thought back to that night 2 years ago. Ellen had been taking medication for her back pain after a fall down the stairs at home. The doctors said she must have gotten confused, taken too many pills. Connor had been the one to find her. He'd called 911. Had been devastated, inconsolable at the funeral. He'd moved back home for 6 months afterward. He said he couldn't bear to be alone. "The fall," I said slowly. "Ellen fell down the stairs 3 months before she died. She said she tripped over something Connor had left on the landing. A duffel bag. But when I asked Connor about it, he said he hadn't left anything there. I thought Ellen was just confused from the pain medication. Robert leaned forward. And your brother's accident? Single car crash. He went off the road on a curve he'd driven 1,000 times. The police said there were no skid marks, like he didn't even try to brake. They thought maybe he'd fallen asleep. But Thomas never drove tired. He was obsessive about it after a friend of his died that way. Who was with Thomas before the accident? I felt cold. Connor. They'd gone fishing together that weekend. Connor drove separately, said he had to leave early for work. Thomas was supposed to meet us for dinner that night. He never showed. Robert pulled out another document. I started checking the applications more carefully. The email address used for your current policy application? It's not yours. It's registered to someone named Melissa Vance. Does that name mean anything to you? Connor's girlfriend. They've been dating for about 8 months. I did some research on Miss Vance. Robert slid a printed page across the desk. She has a criminal record. Identity theft, insurance fraud. She served 18 months in Nevada 5 years ago. After she got out, she disappeared off the grid, until she started dating your son. My hands were shaking now. You're saying Connor and this woman, they killed Ellen? Killed Thomas? I'm saying there's a pattern. And this new policy? It was submitted the day after you signed that waiver. What waiver? Robert's expression darkened. For the skydiving trip. Connor told me he was taking you skydiving for your 62nd birthday next month. Said you'd been talking about crossing it off your bucket list. He needed the insurance company to acknowledge you'd be engaging in a high-risk activity. I had never mentioned skydiving. I was terrified of heights. Connor knew that. David, I think your son is planning to kill you, and I think his girlfriend has been helping him. The words hung in the air between us. Part of me wanted to laugh, to tell Robert he was insane. But the other part, the part that had been pushing down doubts for 2 years, knew he was right. What do I do? Robert pulled out his phone. I have a friend at the FBI. White-collar crimes. She's been looking into a series of insurance frauds that match this pattern. I called her before you got here. She's willing to meet with us. Now? Unless you want to wait for Connor to succeed. The FBI agent's name was Sarah Morrison. She was younger than I expected, maybe 40, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. We met her at a coffee shop, 3 blocks from Robert's office. She didn't waste time with pleasantries. Mr. Hayes, Roberts shared his concerns with me. I need to ask you some very direct questions about your son. For the next hour, I answered everything she asked. Connor's behavior over the past few years, his financial situation, his relationship with Ellen and Thomas. The more I talked, the more the pieces fell into place. Connor had been struggling with gambling debts. I'd lent him $15,000 a year ago. Thought it was for his startup business. He'd paid me back 6 months later, right after Ellen died, right after he'd collected on her policy. The money he paid you back, Agent Morrison said. Did he ever explain where he got it? He said his business had a successful quarter. Mr. Hayes, your son doesn't have a business. He hasn't filed taxes in 3 years. The address he's using for his apartment? It belongs to Melissa Vance. He's been living off her. Everything I thought I knew about my son was crumbling. What happens now? Agent Morrison exchanged a glance with Robert. Right now, we don't have enough evidence to arrest them. The forged signatures, the suspicious policies, even the connection to Melissa's past. What we need is to catch them in the act. You mean, use me as bait? I mean, give them the opportunity to reveal their plan. With your consent, we'd like to approve this policy application. Let Connor think it's going through. Then we set up surveillance, document every step they take. The moment they make a move that proves intent to commit murder, we arrest them. I thought about Ellen, about the night she died. Connor, sitting beside her bed at the hospital, holding her hand, tears streaming down his face. Had those tears been real? Or had he been relieved that his plan had worked? What about the skydiving trip? We'll control every aspect of it. Federal agents will be the instructors. You'll never be in real danger. But Connor will think you are. And if he does what we think he's going to do, he'll make sure that parachute doesn't open. I looked at Robert. He'd known my family for over a decade, had sent flowers when Ellen died, had helped me navigate the aftermath of losing my wife. You believe this? You really think Connor could do this? Robert's voice was gentle. David, I've seen a lot of insurance claims in my career. The timing, the patterns, the amounts. This isn't coincidence. I'm sorry. I closed my eyes, opened them. What do I need to do? Over the next 3 weeks, I lived a double life. During the day, I worked at my construction sites, managed my crews, went through the motions of normalcy. At night, I met with Agent Morrison and her team, planned every detail of the operation they were calling Freefall. Connor called me every few days from Seattle. At least, that's where he said he was. Agent Morrison confirmed he'd never left California. The phone records showed he was calling from Melissa's apartment in San Diego, 2 hours south of my home. How's the trip going? I asked during one call, my voice steady even as I stared at the surveillance photos spread across Agent Morrison's conference table. Photos of Connor and Melissa, taken that morning at a coffee shop in San Diego. Melissa's hand on Connor's knee, both of them smiling. Great, Dad. The meetings are going well. Listen, I wanted to remind you about your birthday surprise. I've got everything set up for the skydiving trip. Next Saturday. Are you excited? Nervous, I said truthfully. But yeah, excited. Don't be nervous. I've done all the research. This place is top-rated. Best safety record in the state. You're going to love it. After I hung up, Agent Morrison played back the recording. He sounds genuine. He's had practice, I said. My son, the actor, how many times had he lied to me over the years? How many of our conversations had been manipulations? We've identified the skydiving company he contacted, Agent Morrison continued. Or rather, the one Melissa contacted using his name. They're not top-rated. In fact, they've had 2 fatalities in the past 5 years, both ruled as equipment failure. We think that's why they chose them. One more accident wouldn't raise suspicions, but we're not using that company. No, we've set up our own operation. Federal agents trained in skydiving instruction. When Connor shows up on Saturday, he'll think everything is going according to plan, but we'll be controlling every element. What about the parachute? How were they planning to sabotage it? Agent Morrison pulled up photos on her laptop. Melissa has been taking skydiving lessons for the past 2 months. She's been asking a lot of questions about equipment, specifically about how accidents happen. One of our agents embedded in the class reported she's been particularly interested in ripcord malfunctions. I felt sick. They'd been planning this for months. While I'd been grieving Ellen, missing her at the dinner table, Connor had been calculating how to add me to her grave. Saturday arrived with clear skies. Perfect conditions for skydiving, Agent Morrison said. Perfect conditions for murder. The drop zone was an hour north of the city, a flat expanse of farmland with a small hangar and a windsock fluttering in the breeze. Connor was already there when I arrived, standing next to a silver SUV I didn't recognize. Melissa was with him. Dad! Connor jogged over, pulled me into a hug. I forced myself to hug him back, to act natural. Happy birthday. You ready for this? As ready as I'll ever be. I looked at Melissa. She was beautiful. I'd give her that. Blonde hair pulled back in a ponytail, bright smile, warm eyes, the kind of woman who could convince you of anything. I didn't know you'd be here. Connor invited me. I hope that's okay. I've always wanted to try skydiving. She linked her arm through Connor's. We thought it would be fun to make it a group thing. The more the merrier, I said, stomach churning. Inside the hangar, 2 instructors were waiting. Federal agents, though you'd never know it from looking at them. They introduced themselves as Mike and Lisa. Ran through the safety briefing with practiced efficiency. I watched Connor's face as Mike explained the equipment. He was nodding along, asking questions, playing the concerned son. Now, for first-time jumpers, you'll be doing a tandem jump, Mike said. You'll be strapped to your instructor the whole time. All you have to do is enjoy the ride. Connor frowned. Actually, I was hoping my dad could do a solo jump. I've arranged for him to take an accelerated freefall course. It's all paid for. Mike shook his head. Sorry, man. Insurance won't cover solo jumps without proper certification. Takes multiple jumps to qualify. I watched the frustration flash across Connor's face before he masked it with a smile. That's too bad. I really wanted Dad to have the full experience. The tandem jump is pretty amazing, Lisa said. You'll still get the adrenaline rush, the incredible views, and it's much safer. Connor's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Melissa touched his arm, squeezed gently. Some unspoken communication passed between them. Well, if that's the only option, Connor said. We geared up. The jumpsuit felt strange, the harness tight across my chest. Mike checked every strap twice, explaining each piece of equipment. The reserve parachute, the altimeter, the helmet. Your main chute will deploy automatically at 3,000 feet, Mike said. But if something goes wrong, I've got a reserve. 15 years with the FBI, Agent Morrison had told me. Mike was one of their best. The plane was small, cramped. Connor and Melissa sat across from me, holding hands. Connor kept checking his watch. Melissa stared out the window, her expression unreadable. At 10,000 feet, Mike opened the door. The wind roared in, deafening. He strapped himself to my harness, checked the connections one final time. Ready? He shouted over the noise. I nodded, looked at Connor one last time. My son, my only child. The boy I'd taught to ride a bike, had taken to baseball games, had been so proud of when he graduated college. When had I lost him? Or had I ever really known him at all? We jumped. The free fall was exactly 60 seconds, though it felt like both an eternity and an instant. The ground rushed up, the wind screamed past, and all I could think was, Ellen did this for me. Thomas died for me. And now, it's my turn. But at 3,000 feet, the parachute deployed exactly as it should. Mike guided us down expertly, landing us gently in the designated zone. I was alive. The plan had failed. Connor ran over as Mike helped me out of the harness. Dad, that was incredible. How do you feel? Like I'm going to throw up, I said honestly. That's normal, Mike said, steadying me. The adrenaline. Why don't you sit down for a minute? I sat in the grass, legs shaky. I looked up at him, at his concerned expression, his warm smile. And I wondered how I was ever going to prove what I knew he'd tried to do. Agent Morrison had warned me this might happen. Without a tandem jump, without Connor having access to sabotage the equipment, they couldn't catch him in the act. We'd have to try another approach. Mr. Hayes? Lisa called out. Can you come inside for a minute? We need you to sign some paperwork. Inside the hangar, away from Connor and Melissa, Agent Morrison was waiting. We've got them, she said quietly. While you were in the air, Melissa tried to bribe one of our agents to switch out your reserve parachute. She offered him $5,000 cash. We have it all on recording. My legs almost gave out. She tried to kill me while I was in the air. The agent played along, pretended to make the switch. Melissa thinks he did it. She's texting Connor right now, telling him Phase 2 is complete. We're moving in. I watched through the hangar window as FBI agents approached Connor and Melissa. They were still sitting on the grass, Connor's arm around Melissa's waist. They looked up in confusion as Agent Morrison showed her badge. The confusion turned to panic. Connor tried to run. 4 agents tackled him before he made it 10 feet. Melissa just sat there, frozen, as they cuffed her hands behind her back. Agent Morrison read them their rights. The words drifted across the field, surreal and damning. You have the right to remain silent. Connor's eyes found mine, and in that moment, all pretense dropped. The mask slipped. What I saw there wasn't my son. It was something cold and calculating and utterly empty. Dad, he called out, as they loaded him into the car. Dad, please. This is a misunderstanding. But I didn't move, didn't speak. Just watched as they drove him away. The trial took 8 months. Connor and Melissa both pled not guilty, claimed they were being framed. But the evidence was overwhelming. The forged insurance applications, the recorded bribe attempt, Melissa's criminal history, and then the bombshell. After Connor's arrest, Agent Morrison's team exhumed Ellen's body. The autopsy showed she hadn't died from an accidental overdose. She'd been given a fatal dose of morphine, injected directly into her IV at the hospital. Security footage from that night, reviewed with new suspicion, showed Connor entering Ellen's room alone at 2 a.m. He'd stayed for 7 minutes. Ellen had coded at 2:15. They couldn't exhume Thomas. He'd been cremated. But they found traffic camera footage from the day of his accident, showing Connor's car behind Thomas's on that mountain road. Expert analysis of Thomas's vehicle showed evidence of being struck from behind, forcing him off the road. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. Connor was convicted of 2 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of attempted murder. He was sentenced to life in prison without possibility of parole. Melissa got 30 years for conspiracy to commit murder and insurance fraud. The insurance companies paid out restitution to Thomas's kids, Ellen's sister. Money couldn't bring back the dead, but at least the families could find some measure of justice. I sold the house 6 months after the trial ended. Too many memories, too many ghosts. I moved to a small town in Oregon, bought a cabin near the coast. Robert calls me every few weeks, checking in. Agent Morrison sent me a Christmas card last year. Connor writes me letters from prison. I haven't opened any of them. Agent Morrison says he's claiming he found religion, wants forgiveness. But forgiveness isn't mine to give. That's between him and whatever God he believes in now. Some nights, I lie awake and wonder when it all went wrong. Was it my fault? Did I fail him somehow, as a father? But then I remember Ellen's smile, Thomas's laugh, and I realize Connor made his choices. He chose greed over love, money over family. I started volunteering at a senior center, helping elderly folks with financial planning, warning them about scams. It turns out there are a lot of predators out there, targeting vulnerable people. Sometimes they're strangers, sometimes they're family. Last week, a woman came to me worried about her daughter-in-law pressuring her to change her will. I listened to her story, helped her contact a lawyer, connected her with resources. Afterward, she hugged me and said, "Thank you for believing me. My son says, I'm just paranoid." I told her what I've learned. Paranoia is just pattern recognition. And sometimes, the people who are supposed to love us are the ones we need to fear most. I still miss Ellen every day. I miss the life we had, the future we planned. But I'm alive. And every morning when I wake up and watch the sunrise over the ocean, I'm grateful for Robert's phone call, for Agent Morrison's investigation, for that 60-second freefall that ended with my feet on solid ground. Trust is a gift, but blind trust is dangerous. I learned that lesson the hardest way possible. I just hope that by sharing my story, by volunteering, by helping others see the red flags I missed, I can save someone else from learning it the same way. The cabin has a good security system now. I keep my financial documents locked in a safe, and I never sign anything without reading it twice. These might seem like small precautions, but they're the difference between life and death. Connor will be eligible for a compassionate release if he develops a terminal illness. Part of me dreads that day, wonders if he'll come looking for me. But another part knows that he took enough from me already. He doesn't get to take my piece too. I'm 63 now. I've outlived the policy he took out on me by a year and counting. Every birthday feels like a victory, not just over Connor, but over the fear, the betrayal, the grief. Robert asked me once if I regret having Connor, knowing what he became. I told him no, because for the first 25 years of his life, he was my son. He was the kid who made me macaroni art and called me his hero. Whatever darkness grew inside him later, those memories were real. They happened, and no one can take that away. But I also told Robert this: love your family, but keep your eyes open. Trust, but verify. And if someone you trust asks you to do something that puts you at risk, ask yourself who benefits if you die. It might save your life.